afternoon, you wonderful people. It is great to have you back here with me on my channel, and welcome to the next episode of Managing at Home. I hope that you are coping well at home, as lots of people on social media have been doing this week. I am trying out some new hairstyles, so let me know what you think in the comments down below. I have been in practice this week. I've been doing telephone triage, speaking to some of you who are at home, who are experiencing dental emergencies, and giving the best advice and guidance that we can. And one of the things that has been coming up this week that we're going to talk about today is ulcers. How do you manage ulcers at home? So an ulcer is a break in the skin inside your mouth, and they can be really excruciatingly painful and sore. I went through a period where I got them really quite frequently, and they used to make me really frustrated because I love salt and vinegar crisps. And if you've ever had an ulcer and tried to eat a salt and vinegar crisp, you will know that those two things really do not go well together. So if you are experiencing ulcers at home, I'm really sorry, because they're not great, they're not comfortable, but there are a couple of things to know about them, and definitely a couple of things that you can do at home. So as dentists, the most common cause of an ulcer that we see is something called RAS. That stands for recurrent aphthous stomatitis. That means ulcers that come and go from time to time. If you are a woman in your 20s and 30s, for some reason we seem to be more prone to have them. There isn't really a particular reason in most circumstances as to why they appear and when they appear. And generally, they tend to last about 10 to 14 days and will disappear by themselves. So you'll know when you've got one of these ulcers mainly because you get pain. They tend to have a red halo around them, so like a red circle, and then a yellow bit in the middle. We call that the yellow base. And generally, the majority of cases when people come and see me with problems with ulcers, that is what they are. What you want to know is, if you're experiencing this at home, how can you make yourself comfortable? Now, unfortunately, there is no silver bullet for recurrent ulcers, and to a certain extent, you do just kind of have to wait it out, wait for things to get better. If you have been feeling unwell, you've had trauma, so a sharp crisp or a bit of hot pizza to a particular area, if you're low in vitamin C, if you're stressed, if you've got immunodeficiency, so you're not particularly well in yourself, or you're lacking in things like iron, all of these things can make you more prone to having an ulcer. And in these uncertain times, it's not going to be inconceivable that some people are going to experience more of them than they would normally do. So how do you control the symptoms? How do you make things comfortable? So our old friend paracetamol finally managed to get a box in the shops. These, as I know, are very hard to come by at the moment. If you can't get paracetamol over the counter, do have a look at some of the cold and flu remedies, because a lot of them have paracetamol in them with just a little bit of added caffeine. They are just as good. Take these as directed on the back of the packet, and they help with managing pain. They're brilliant for that. My absolute favourite when I had ulcers was Bonjela. Now, you've probably seen this on the TV, in the adverts. Bonjela is brilliant, and it's brilliant especially when you're eating, to give you that kind of symptom relief. I appreciate that when you put Bonjela on an ulcer, it doesn't get rid of the pain for the whole day. It is something that you do have to keep using during the day, but particularly around meal times, I found that this was an absolute godsend. There is something else that you can get over the counter in your pharmacy. It is called Diflam, so a little bit similar to Bonjela in the sense that it's got painkillers in it, and it can make things a little bit more comfortable. So if you have an ulcer on your tongue, for example, which can be really, really sore, something like a Diflam mouthwash is going to be a little bit easier to use than Bonjela, and it's likely to stick around for a little bit longer. There are other mouthwashes. There's our old friend chlorhexidine, so that's Corsadil, or this particular one that I've got here is Ultradex, which can help a little bit, or a teaspoon of salt and a glass of water as warm as you can stand. But a lot of these things are, unfortunately, just symptom relief. 10 to 14 days is how long it takes the average ulcer to disappear. And there aren't a horrendous amount of things on the market that tends to move that along any further. There has been some evidence that shows that some foods can make you more prone to getting ulcers, so things that are spicy in particular and things that have got tomato in them, if you're feeling particularly sensitive to ulcers at this point in time, are good things to avoid. Another great thing that you can help, vitamin C. Vitamin C is great for maintaining our skin surface, and the same can be said for the surfaces within your mouth. So if you're finding that you're kind of feeling a little bit under the weather and you are getting a little bit kind of ulcery in a few sore areas, vitamin C, ideally in a full fruit form, or if you prefer to have a vitamin C supplement, these are really great as well, and they'll just help give your immune system that boost that you might need. Now, in some cases, some people do experience ulcers that happen quite frequently over a long period of time. I know personally I went through about 7 or 8 months where I didn't feel like I had more than 2 or 3 days break between my ulcers. And if that is the case and you are in that situation, please, please, please give me a ring or speak to your dentist wherever you are. There are a couple of things that we can prescribe that can kind of suppress them a little bit, but we don't generally like to give those in every circumstance. So one of the things that, if you are experiencing ulcers and you're finding them quite frequent, one of the things that you can do that can help us decide whether you fall into that category of people that we give additional medication to, keep a diary. If you end up ever referring you along to a pain clinic in a dental hospital or somewhere like that, they are going to need information. So what do you need in an ulcer diary? We need to know what size they are, and generally size is a quite difficult thing. I'm not expecting you to try and get a ruler into your mouth and measure, but if you have a 5p piece, or imagine a 5p piece, write down whether it is bigger or smaller than a 5p piece. Write down where it is, write down if it's painful, and how long it's been there for. So the first day it arrives to how long it disappears. And that kind of information can help us make a more informed diagnosis when you come into surgery. In the meanwhile, stay on top of your painkillers, use paracetamol, use Difflam mouthwash, use Bonjela to manage those symptoms. And I promise you that if you leave it long enough, eventually, in the majority of cases, they do go away. It has probably been about 7 years since I've had my last ulcer, for which I am incredibly thankful. So keep going, stay safe, stay home, and we shall see you soon. Bye!